So, we're going to start with anti-neoplastic agents or drugs. So, what is cancer? What is cancer? Cancer is a rapid creation of abnormal cells that grow beyond the usual boundaries. Means abnormal growth of cells, division of cells, which can invade the adjoining part of the body and spread to other organs. So it can be benign or it can spread across the other organs also. This process is referred to as metastasis. So this is referred to as metastasis, and metastasis are the major cause of death from cancer. So what happens basically in cancer? The abnormal divisions of cell takes place. So during a cell cycle, there is an resting phase where you get a signal from your body that enough, these cells are enough for our body. But in cancer, there is no such mechanism. The cells don't get signals from your body and it divides in an abnormal pace, in an exponential pace. Moreover, it's not associated to one part of the body. It can spread to entirely throughout our body and different organs. So this process is known as what? Metastasis. This process is known as metastasis. Cancer is medically known as malignant neoplasm. So other name, medical name for cancer is malignant neoplasm. Okay. It's a broad group of disease involving unregulated cell growth. It contains all different types of cancer. Okay. It's everything which is associated with unregulated cell growth. It's known as malignant neoplasm. Okay. In cancer, cells divide and grow uncontrollably, forming a malignant tumor. If you see, most of the time, there is a growth which can be observed externally. There is a growth which can be observed externally. Okay. Which can be observed externally. Okay. Cancer may also spread from a distant part of an body through lymphatic and bloodstream. So it can travel through your lymphatic system or it can pass through your lymphatic system as well as your bloodstream. Okay. Not all tumors are cancerous. Sometimes there will be an overgrowth. You say now massa and something. So there will be an overgrowth of tissues. So it is benign tumors do not invade neighboring tissues and do not spread throughout the body. It is associated to one part of the body. In case of benign, it is only associated to one part of the body where it does not spread throughout the body. There are more than 200 different known cancers that affect humans. Okay. So this is the basic introduction of cancer. So if the cancerous cells, depending upon this invasion, whether it affects other part of it can be divided into two classes. They can be classified into two. If the cancerous cells invade other parts of the body and set up secondary tumors, which is known as metastasis, it can be classified into two parts. The tumors can be classified into two parts. That is malignant tumor. This can spread from the original site and cause secondary tumors, means it can spread across your body. It can spread across your body. And they interfere with the neighboring cells and can block blood vessels, the gut, glands, etc. The malignant tumor can destroy the correct functioning of major organs. Okay, so this is malignant, that is metastatic tumor cancer. Next one is non-malignant tumor, non-malignant tumor or malignant tumor. So what is this known as? They are non-cancerous tumor, which does not metastasize. That means it did not spread. Okay, malignant tumors are usually a threat to are not usually a threat to the life. Malignant tumors are generally confined to a local area. That is localized cancer. It's overgrowth. So these are the two types of cancer: malignant and non-malignant. And non-malignant cancer are also known as your benign tumors. They do not metastasize. That means it does not spread to different organs. So these are the two types of cancers or tumors that are, cancer types. Cancers can be categorized based on the function, location of the cells, from which they originate, from the source, and its location and the function. So these are the criteria through which they classify or categorize your cancer. First one is carcinoma. What is carcinoma? Carcinoma is tumor derived from epithelial cells. Those cells that line the surface of the skin or the organ. So outer surface is thin. So these are known as carcinoma. And 80 to 90% of cancers are reported in this case. Next is sarcoma. Sarcoma is a tumor derived from muscles, bones, cartilages, flat and connective tissues. So it is related to your muscular, bone cancer, and all are broadly classified as your sarcoma. Next is leukemia. Leukemia is a cancer derived from your WBC or their precursor. Okay, it is cancer derived from your vitamins, which is associated with your blood cancer. Lymphoma is a cancer of bone marrow derived cells that affect the lymphatic system. Okay, the cancer associated with bone marrow and which is associated with your lymphatic system, it is known as lymphoma. And the next class is myeloma. It's a cancer associated with blood cells responsible for production of antibodies. So these are the basic classification of your cancers according to their function and location. Now the cell cycle. So your cell division is one of the most important criteria in your cancer, anti-cancer. So we have to know the cell cycle, how the cells divide. There are two phases that the cells live. One is metastatic and it is interphase. Okay, so what happens in the interphase? There are three different phases in your interphase. First one is your G1, S phase, and your G2 phase. And then there is a metastasis phase, that is your M phase. In between there is also something called G0 phase, that is a resting phase. Okay, so each phase has some function. Each phase has some function and it is associated with your cell division. It is associated with your cell divisions. So in your initial phase, that is G1, and in the G1 phase, cells enlarge. Okay, in the G1 phase, the cells begins to enlarge and make new proteins which are necessary for formation of your cells. Okay, new proteins which are necessary for the formation of your cells. Okay, that is your initiation phase. G1 is your initiation phase. Then comes your, then there is a restriction point where your cell growth is inhibited. Beyond that. Next is the synthetic phase, that is your S phase. That is your S phase. That is your synthetic phase. Is your synthetic phase. Next is your S phase, that is your synthetic phase, where your enzymes needed for your DNA synthesis are secreted. All the materials which are necessary for your DNA synthesis takes place and the cell replicates its DNA. Now the G2 phase. In this case, the cells enlarge and it prepares all the components which are necessary to be present, required for your mitosis. It prepares all the chromatin and all which is necessary. It is prepared in your G2 phase. And then last comes your mitotic phase, where the cell actually divides into two daughter cells. So this is the life cycle. Okay, this is the life cycle of your cell. This is the cell cycle in your cell division phase. So we have to know this is very important to be studied. This is very important to be studied because everything is related to the cell cycle and the drugs act on this particular cell cycles. So these are some of the videos which I'll be showing you later in the class. So what is the cellular pathway of malignancy, the cause of tumor? What is the cause of tumor? So where it can be, so normal cell, what happens? Normal cell, if the DNA damage, then there is a repair and you get the normal. If the damaged DNA, okay, your damaged DNA, now what will happen? It undergoes mutation in the genome of the stomatic cell. So when there is a DNA damage, if there is no repair, then it undergoes mutation. And this mutation of the stomatic cells can lead to three different forms. Okay. So the first one is what? Inherited mutation in the gene affecting the DNA repairs and gene affecting cells growth are apoptosis. So what happens if the DNA does, then it leads to apoptosis, means abnormal division of your cells. This leads to what? Mutation on genome leads to your activation of growth promoting oncogenes. So the factors which are responsible for cancerous growth, it gets growth factors associated with cancer gets activated. Alteration of the gene that regulate apoptosis, that is cell control. The control of cell division, which is that genes will be altered. Inactivation of cancer suppressing genes. There are some TNFR. So there are some genes which act as a suppressor gene. So that gets inactivated due to this mutation. And this leads to expression of altered gene products or loss of regulatory gene protein. So what happens? The genes which are necessary to control the cell division, okay, they get inactivated and altered gene products are produced. So if the altered genes are produced, this will lead to altered gene DNA and thus protein synthesis and thus cause your cancer. Okay, that leads to your malignant neoplasm. So this is the cellular pathway of your malignancy or your cancer growth. So you have to know this cycle. So these are acquired. So what does it have? Your radiation, chemical exposure, viruses, and this exposure leads to this. Yeah. This thing leads to this. Okay. Now the classification of anti-neoplastic drugs. Now the classification of your anti-neoplastic drugs. Very important classification. First class A is alkylating agent. Class B is antimetabolite. Class C is plant products, alkaloids. Class D is antibiotics. E is hormone and antagonists. Fifth is biological response modulator like interferons, interleukins. Then miscellaneous drugs like hydroxyurea, protein kinase inhibitors, proteomerase inhibitor, and cisplatin. So these are the classes of drugs. Now in alkylating agent, you got nitrogen mustard, example, cyclophosphamide, chlorambucil. Then azidine like thiotepa, alkyl sulfonates like busulfan, nitrosourea like carmethylene, lamictal. Then your antimetabolites, example, purine antagonist like your 6-mercaptopurine, pyrimidine antagonist like 5-fluorouracil, folic acid antagonist like methotrexate, like methotrexate. Okay. Then plant alkaloids. Plant alkaloids are vinblastine and vincristine. Vinblastine and vincristine. Taxanes are paxital and doxital. Epipodophylotoxins and iptoxides. These are the plant alkaloids. Now, antibiotics like donorubicin, doxorubicin, methotrexate, bleomycin, and mitomycin. These are the antibiotics. Even tetracyclines are used as a anti-cancer treatment. Hormone and antagonist, we have studied progestins control your estrogen synthesis and biosynthesis. So they can be used because all these hormones are responsible for your DNA replication, which might lead to cancerousness. Overactivation of this can lead of these hormones lead to even your abnormal growth. So progestin can be used to control your cell division. Estrogen like analogs, estrogen and its analogs like diethylstilbestrol, estradiol, they can be used. Anti-estrogens like tamoxifen, tormifen, androgens like testosterone, and anti-androgens like flutamide. This can be used for the treatment. Okay. As I said, other biologicals like interferons, alpha and interleukin 2 can be used. Miscellaneous like hydroxyurea, protein kinase, tyrosine kinase inhibitor, and proteasome inhibitors, and cisplatin. Cisplatin is also, it's a class of an alkylating agent only, but it's modified. Okay. Now let's go for the where this drug acts. Now let's go where this drug acts depending upon the so initially with purine and pyrimidines, because this is the first thing from where your DNA synthesized. That is your purine pyrimidine analogs. They gets converted into ribonucleotides. This type of ribonucleotides gets converted into deoxy when there is a deoxy sugar, then it becomes deoxyribonucleotides that gets converted into DNA and RNA, and this DNA and RNA gets converted into proteins, that is microtubules, enzymes, and the drugs act in each and every step. Okay, so if you say antimetabolites like your 6-mercaptopurines, 6-thioguanines, 5-fluorouracil, they act on your 6-mer and methotrexate, they act on your purine and pyrimidines and folic acid, which is necessary, which inhibits your purine ring synthesis. Hydroxyurea inhibits your ribonucleotide reductase, that is for your conversion of your ribonucleotides into deoxyribonucleotide. Methotrexate inhibits your deoxythymidine methyl synthetase, which is necessary for your synthesis of your nucleotides. Okay, methotrexate and 5-fluorouracil act on that. Citarbins inhibits your conversion of your deoxyribonucleotides into your DNA. Bleomycin prevents your scission of your DNA. Then alkali and all other antibiotics, they cause intercalation of your DNA. That is, they get introduced between your DNA. Or your alkylating agent will create a cross linkage in your DNA. So thus it will prevent your DNA and RNA synthesis. Whereas your vinca alkaloids inhibit your microtubule function, and your protein kinase inhibitor blocks your enzymes, which are necessary for your cell division. So this is the summary of mechanism of action and site of action of your chemotherapeutic agent. Where these drugs act, basically you should know where, in the cellular pathway, cell division pathway, where these drugs act. So once you know this, on which cycle of the cell division does, you can come to know this particular agents act. So now let's go for your alkylating agent. The first class of drug is alkylating agent. Okay, example: chlorambucil, busulfan, thiotepa, procarbazine, carmocytine. So these are the broader classification of your, these are the alkylating agents. So if you see, all these drugs contain an active chlorine group. Okay, if you see the terminal is chlorine, most of the drugs they contain chlorine at the end. Okay, because they get introduced, or it and reactive species which can release your chlorine in the further reaction. Okay, or an active electrophilic group which can be released. So example is chlorambucil, busulfan, carmocytine, thiotepine, procarbazole. Okay. So let's go for the mechanism of what are alkylating agents. So what is alkylating agent? Alkyl group introduction into something. So alkylic agents are defined as replacement of hydrogen on an atom by an alkyl group. So what happens? Your alkyl group replaces the hydrogen in other group. So this is the basic definition of your alkylating agent. So they and these compounds are highly electrophilic compounds. So what the compound that are formed are highly electrophilic compounds when they get attached. Okay. So alkylating agent contains an reactive alkyl group. It contains an reactive alkyl group. In case of nitrogen mustard, if you see, it contains an N-ethyl diethyl methyl dichloride. It is an dichloroamino derivative, okay, alkyl derivative. So it contains an active alkyl group. Once your methyl chlorine is liberated, it becomes an alkyl group. Okay, these compounds undergo neighboring group reaction, react with your neighboring group, produce highly reactive carbon ion. So your chlorine gets liberated and it forms an highly reactive carbonium ion. Carbonium ion is nothing but when the positive charge comes on your carbon, it is known as carbonium ion. So it might also undergo cyclization as shown in case of nitrogen mustard, or it will form a CS2 plus. Okay, you get an carbonium ion, that is your positive charge on the carbon intermediate, and this intermediate is highly reactive. And what does this intermediate does, carbonium intermediate does? They form a covalent bond by alkylation of your 7th position of your guanine. So in your guanine ring, if you can see the structure of guanine, it contains, it's an purine derivative with the carbonyl and in between the two nitrogen, there is in place of two nitrogen, it is an amino group and a carbonyl at the top. Okay, so this guanine, okay, so this is the guanine. So what happens at the N7th position? This carbonium ion attacks on the N7th position. Okay, the double stranded DNA causing, now what happens? So one of this thing forms at the N7. The second group also, which is present in your alkali, the chlorine gets removed. Again, it forms a carbon. Again, it attacks on your N7 carbon of your 7th position of your second carbon. Okay, second guanine. So what happens? Instead of your disulfide linkage, your alkylating agents join, forms a cross linkage. Okay, forms a cross linkage. It forms a cross linkage, and this lead to mispairing. So it should be a guanine and a cytosine. Okay, instead of that, guanine gets introduced. So wrong sequencing. So if there is a wrong sequencing, that will interfere with the separation and also arrest the mitotic phase. So there will be no separation of your DNA. Your DNA formation which takes place in your S1 phase will not take place. So this will affect the mitotic phase and arrest the cell replication. Because these bonds are strong, it will be difficult to break. So your new DNAs will be not, and thus it will arrest the cell division. So this is the mechanism of action of your alkylating agent. This is the mechanism of action. So let's go read it. So alkylating are the class of drugs that are capable of forming covalent bond with important biomolecules like your guanine. and cytosine. Okay, the major part of this targets of these drug actions are nucleophilic groups present in your DNA, especially the seventh position, as I explained, on the seventh position of guanine. However, protein and RNA, among others, are also gets alkylate. It can also alkylate proteins and RNA also. There are several potential nucleophilic sites in DNA other than N7 position. There are other positions which are susceptible to be attacked by your electrophilic attack by your alkylating agent, like N2, N3, and N7 of guanine. Remember these positions, it's very important. It can also attack on the N2, N3, and N7 of your guanine, and N1 and N3 and N7 of adenine, and O6 of your thymine, and N3 of your cytosine. So all these positions, they can alkylate your DNA or RNA. Okay, so this is very much important to be known. So it's not only the N7 position, it can attack on N2, N3 also of your guanine, also N1, N3, and N7 of your adenine, and your O6 of your thymine, and N3 of your cytosine. All this position it can act. The most important of this is N7 position of your guanine, whose nucleoside may be enhanced by adjacent guanine residue, because it has got a guanine residue adjacent to it that will increase its nucleophilicity. Okay, so this is how the alkylating agents act. So this is your diagrammatic representation. So if there is a DNA side change, they will form a cross linkage between the guanine and guanine. So this will be difficult to break. So because of this cross linkage between guanine and guanine in your DNA sequence, the splitting of your DNA into new, when there is a splitting that takes place in formation of a new cell, this is inhibited. Thus the alkylating agents act, and thus the alkylating agents act. Okay, now additionally, so along with this, additionally, alkylating has been proposed to result in the altered base pairing away from your normal GC and AT. So there can be an alteration in your pairing. This can lead to alteration also. Instead of that, it can, if there is another group, it can pair with your, so this can lead to mispairing of your nucleotides. This can lead to a mispairing of your nucleotide. Alkylation also leads to your increased acidity of your N1 nitro, reducing the pK from 9 to 7, giving rise to zwitterion from your. This may also lead to mispairing. So once it gets added, it leads to your increasing in your pK, which also leads to your mispairing. So the DNA sequencing will be altered. All these agents possess two reactive functions, both interstrand and intrastrand. Within the strand as also across the different strand, it can act. Okay, in the proteins. So they can form inter and intra cross linkages. Thus, it prevents the replication, and therefore replication is. So this is the mechanism of action of your. This is the mechanism of action of your alkylating agent. Okay, you have to write this much in your mechanism of action. Now, first class of drug is chlorambucil. Mechanism of action is same. First one was we explained it through nitrogen mustard, your mechanism of action. Second is your chlorambucil. They act by cross-linking of your DNA. They form a cross-linkage in your DNA, which results in formation of altered protein, leading to decrease in cell division and ultimately cause the cell death of your cell. So what happens? If the cross-linkage changes, replication is, it can also lead to different mispairing. That also leads to wrong protein formation. So this all factors will cause the cell death. Okay. So this is the mechanism of action of your chlorambucil. Uses in multiple myeloma, lymphosarcoma, lymphatic leukemia, polycythemia vera, ovarian adenocarcinoma, Hodgkin's disease, and in combination in testicular cancer and malignant lymphoma. So these are the uses of chlorambucil. Now let's go for the synthesis. Let's go for the synthesis of chlorambutyl. So it starts with what? Nitration of phenyl butyric acid. What is this phenyl butyric acid? Butyric acid, that is this 4 carbon containing a carboxylic group which is attached to your phenyl group. So 4 phenyl butyric, at the 4th position of your butyric acid there is a phenyl group. What is the first step? The first step is your nitration using concentrated HNO3 and H2SO4. Your nitration takes place. Okay. What is the next? Once the nitration, you do the reduction. The nitro group gets converted into your amino group. And this amino group you treat it with your ethylene oxide. You get your OH, CS2OH, CS2CS2OH. Ring opening takes place, you get your primary alcohol. Okay, when you treat it with 2 moles. Now this, when you treat it with POCl3 or palladium carbon or thionyl chloride or POCl3, your OH group gets converted into Cl. Chlorination takes place. You get your chlorambucil. So it is a phenyl butyric acid derivative. It's a phenyl butyric acid derivative. So basically, the starting material is phenyl butyric acid. It gets nitrated, followed by reduction, then treatment with ethylene oxide. You get your alcohol, primary alcohol or 2 primary alcohols, which is attached to your nitrogen. Then your chlorination with thionyl chloride to give your chlorambucil. So this is the synthesis of your chlorambucil. Next is busulfan. So what is this busulfan? In all the alkylating group, it should have a very good leaving group. The first thing that it should have a very good leaving group. In case of, if you said chlorambucil, it had a leaving group as chloro. But in case of busulfan, your chlorine group is replaced by your sulfonate group, which is also a very good leaving group, bifunctional leaving group. So your busulfan is also contains your alkyl, your chlorine, halogenated chlorine is replaced by your sulfonate group, which is also a good leaving group, which is as in your chlorines in your nitrogen mustard. Okay, busulfan, the structure, if you see 1, 2, 3, 4 carbon, that is in your butane, which contains an sulfonate group at the 2 terminals. Okay, the sulfonate groups at the 2 terminals. It's a butane ring which contains sulfonate at the 2 terminals. OSO3 methyl sulfonate groups at your terminal carbons. Okay, that's the first thing. Now you know that sulfonates are very good glue, and you know that N7 position of your guanine is highly nucleophilic. So this will attack on your sulfonate group of your busulfan, releasing your sulfonate and addition of your alkyl group. Okay, that is the first thing. Again, the next sulfonate group which is present gets attacked by your N7 nitrogen of your guanine, which is present in your DNA. So this leads to your DNA cross linkage of your busulfan. The mechanism of action is same, but only things are leaving group is OSO2 methyl sulfonate group. That's the only difference. This also leads to a cross linkage. Okay. So this is the example of busulfan. The only thing difference is the leaving group. The leaving group is different. The sulfonate is the leaving group in case of busulfan, whereas chlorine is a leaving group in case of nitrogen mustard. So the synthesis of busulfan is very easy. You take 1,4-butane diol. You treat it with methyl sulfonic acid in presence of pyridine. You get your busulfan. That is introduction of methyl sulfonate group at the 2 alcohols gets replaced by your methane sulfonate group. So that is your busulfan synthesis. The next important alkylating agent is cyclophosphamide. It contains a phosphomide linkage. It's a cyclic phosphonate group, ester group, which is present in this molecule. So it the phosphonate group forms a part of your six-membered cyclic chain. Six-membered, which contains an oxygen and nitrogen next to each other, adjacent, followed by your alkyl group. That is your CS2, CS2, CS2. Okay, that is your cyclic. And a phosphate, that's why it is called double bond. And over here also you can see the two alkylating, that is CS2 chloro, CS2 chloro, which will act as your alkylating agent. So now let's see the mechanism of action of this thing, phosphomide, cyclophosphamide. So this gets activated by hepatic cytochrome P450 system. Okay, this gets activated by your enzyme, that is cytochrome P450. The phosphatase and phosphoimidase are the primary activator which hydrolyze the. So first thing is that the bonds between your phosphorus and nitrogen. So this can be done by your phosphatase enzyme. Then there is enzyme aldophosphamide, which non-enzymatically breaks. Then there is a non-enzymatic breakage of your aldophosphamide linkage, which breaks down your phosphoramide mustard, that is your bifunctional group, and your acrolein. So initially this is inactive. It has to be activated by your enzymes. So it acts. So these cyclophosphomides act as a pro-drug. It has to be enzymatically converted into your active form, that is your phosphoramide mustard bifunctional group. So then only it can be activated. Now let's see the cascading effect. How does it happen? So what is the first step? You got your phosphoramide, cyclophosphamide, that is your normal drug. Then it undergoes your ring breakage that takes place. First step is it gets attacked by your cytochrome P50. That leads to your OH, introduction of your OH, oxidation takes place. First step. Okay, that gets converted into, so the things which are given on the left hand side is the inactivation pathway. This is the activation. So by the enzymes it might get inactivated. Okay, so once this hydroxy gets converted, what happens? They get by your phosphatase, the bond between your phosphorus gets broken, and you get your aldophosphamide. Okay, you get your bond between your nitrogen and your carbon breaks. You get an phosphamide and a carbonyl group. Okay, you get an aldophosphamide. Aldophosphamide, why it is called aldophosphamide? Because they are aldehyde group, terminal aldehyde group, and phosphamide because you got a phosphorus amide group. That's why it is called aldophosphamide. And this aldophosphamide breaks open. Okay, you get phosphoramide esters and your acrolein. You get your phosphoramide mustard and your acrolein. And this acrolein is very carcinogenic. It's not good for our body. It is highly carcinogenic. That's why this drug is not much used. And the active form of the cyclophosphamide is phosphoramide mustard. This only then acts on your DNA. So this is the activation pathway of your cyclophosphamide. You should know. First is hydroxylation, then breakage of your phosphoramide bond, followed by your breaking of your ring to give your acrolein and your phosphoramide mustard, which is your active part in your cyclophosphamide. Okay. So now clinical application, most widely used alkylating agent, and a part due to ability in your oral, because it is available local, that's why it is given. All these anti-cancer drugs have got lot of side effects. So when you give it, because it can attack your normal cell also. So that's why we have to be very careful when you are administering this. Active on lymphoproliferative disease like Hodgkin's disease and chronic lymphatic leukemia. Significant activity versus against multiple myeloma, ovarian, breast cancer, and small cell lung carcinoma, and many combinations. It can be used. It is basically given in combination with other drugs. So adverse side effect, like since it affects your lymphoma, so it can suppress your bone marrow, and most important leukemia and thrombocytopenia. That are it can also lead to your other cancers also. Nausea, vomiting, sterile necrotic hemorrhagic cyst, acrolein, which is caused by your acrolein, which I said, which is highly toxic. It also to minimize cystic and high water intake and take in your during a morning. Okay, so these are the side effects of your adverse effect of your cyclophosphamide. And the next class of drug is your nitrosourea. Nitrosourea. Why it is called nitrosourea? Why it is called nitrosourea? If you see the structure of carmocytin, which you can see it over here, it contains a nitro, so that is NO group, and a urea. If you see N double bond N C double bond O NH. So this is an urea and a nitroso, that is NO group. And there are two alkylating side arms. So it is an urea. First you have to write an urea. Nitrosourea means C double N C double bond O NH. And one of the nitrogen of your urea contains your nitroso. So this is your structure of nitrosourea. Okay. The first example of this is carmocytin. And there are two examples, carmocytin and lomocytin. They are the example of chloroethyl. Why it is called chloroethyl? Because ethyl group, which contains a chloroethyl, nitrosourea derivatives. They are chloroethyl because ethyl group is connected to your chloro, and which is in turn connected to a nitrosourea, which are lipid soluble and cross the blood-brain barrier. As a result, they might be used in the treatment of brain tumor. So in case of brain tumor, this carmocytin is used, and also in meningeal leukemia. So in most of it is used in the treatment of your cancer associated with your brain. So that what happens, these drugs, they're highly reactive species. So what does this drug do? They spontaneously decompose in the body to two active compounds. They spontaneously dissociate into two active compounds. An alkylating agent, one is your alkylating agent and other is your carbomylating agent. Carbomylation in the introduction of your carbamyl, that is your carbonyl group. So these are the two things that they divide. These are the two things that they divide. The organic isocyanate formed in carbamate is formed by carbomating your lysine residue of your protein and may inactivate the DNA repair enzymes. Okay, by inactivating the DNA repair. Whereas the alkylating group forms the reacts with the O6. So if you see over here, it reacts with the O6 of your guanine. If you see that is O6, the carbonyl group at the 6th. Okay, it is missing over here. There's a carbonyl group at the 6th position, as I explained. So instead of your N7, it reacts with the O6 of your guanine moiety in one strand, and then the O6 position of the guanine. It can also react with the N3 position of your cytosine. Cytosine is a pyrimidine analog. So it can react with the N3 carbon of your cytosine in other strands to produce your intercalated. So it can react with your guanine as well as cytosine at the N3 position. So nitrosourea have dual mechanism of action whereby alkylating and carbamylating. Let's see how it acts as an carbamylating agent. So what happens in your medium when it comes into your water, when it comes in contact with your medium, it being an inactive, the OH, which is from your medium, any nucleophile which removes your proton from your urea. Okay, you said there is urea. So once that urea removes the proton from the urea, so what is liberated? You get your isocyanate. You get your isocyanate. Okay, you get is your isocyanate, and you get which binds with your lysine by carbamyl. Next thing is what? There is a removal of your nitrogen and OH. So there is a removal of a nitrogen and OH, and you get your alkylating agent. So you get your first positively charged that binds your N7 position, O6 of your guanine, and again the chlorine is there, that also will be liberated and it will act as a cross linkage with your other. So first step is what? Formation of your isocyanate, that is C double bond O double bond C double bond NR. So OCN linker is known as iso, and these are very reactive species. They will interact with the lysine amino group of your amino group to form a carbamate. Okay, to form a carbon NC double bond ONH. This is an carbamate. Okay, so this will be formed, and thus this will inactivate your proteins. Okay, in DNA. That is through carbon. And next is by alkylating agent. Next is your alkylating agent. So this is how your carmocetins and lumicidin act. Okay, this is how your carmocetine and lumicidin acts. Synthesis of your carmocetine, you take aziridine. Aziridine is nothing but a three-membered uh, cyclic amine containing group, which is treated with phosgene, that is COCl2. So you get your diazyl methyl methionine, and that when you treat it with HCl, you get your chlorine derivative. And this derivative, when you treat it with ring opening, and you get a chlor, and this derivative when you treat it with your NaNO2 in acetic in formic acid, you get your nitroso derivative, that NO group gets introduced, and you get your carmocetine. So this is the synthesis of your carmocetine and mechanism of action of your carmocetine. So this is what I would like to take till today. So these are the drugs which acts an alkylating agent. So these are the alkylating agent.